What does it mean to be a criminal? In New Zealand, those who suffer from drug addiction are treated in large part as criminals. Often from backgrounds of poverty, sufferers of mental illness, or raised in hardship, they are prosecuted, stigmatized, and either put through an ineffective jail system or face hefty punishments. Rather than approaching drug abuse as a health issue, which at its very core is what it is, those who partake in illicit drugs become offenders under our laws. Drug use is a pressing issue in New Zealand. According to the New Zealand Drug Harm Index of 2016, the estimated social cost of drug-related harms and intervention in 2014 and 15 was at $1.8 billion. That includes harms to health, family, friends, and the wider community. Nearly half of all adult Kiwis will try an illicit drug at some point in their lives. For many, this leads to no long-term harm, but for some, they often have a grim outlook. As of March 2017, New Zealand's prison population amounts to 10,000 people. Roughly 1,500 of those are for drug-related offences. In 2017, New Zealand will spend $100 million plus imprisoning drug offenders. The people that suffer the most from this system are our young. Half of those convicted for possession, a drug utensil, or use are aged between 17 and 25. For a lot of these young New Zealanders, this leads to a life of crime. When speaking to the UN, Tuare Potiki, chair of the New Zealand Drug Foundation, said, "A major part of the world drug problem are those countries that continue to block progress towards compassionate, proportionate, health-based responses to drug use. If there is a war to be fought, it should be a war on poverty, disparity, dispossession, and the multitude of historical and political factors that have left and continue to leave so many people vulnerable and in jeopardy." A large portion of our most vulnerable, misunderstood people are getting caught up in a system that severely marginalizes them, puts barriers in their lives, exposes them to further negative environments, and stacks the odds against them. Prison is a breeding ground for crime. 54% of people convicted for non-violent drug offences end up being reconvicted, while 34% are eventually re-imprisoned. So why is it that out of $350 million spent on addressing drug use in New Zealand in 2016, $270 million was spent on police, courts and corrections, and only $80 million was spent on the Ministry of Health, especially considering that drug and alcohol rehabilitation has proven to be incredibly effective in New Zealand, returning between $4 and $7 on every dollar invested. The prison system is broken and the prohibition of drugs is a failure. Even for those that aren't in prison for drug use, the hefty fines and punishments tend to add additional struggles to people who are already of low socioeconomic backgrounds. The best way to combat drug abuse is through understanding that it is fundamentally an issue of health and not crime. Around the world, there are examples of successful cases of drug decriminalization. 17 years ago, Portugal made the daring and at the time questionable decision of decriminalizing all drugs. Since then, HIV infections related to drugs have dropped by 90%, the percentage of drug-related offenders in prison more than halved, and there has been a steady decline in continuation of drug use in adults. This is just a fraction of the benefits that Portugal has gained. When quoted on the policies, Portuguese drug official João Goulão said that, "I think harm reduction is not giving up on people. I think it is respecting their timings and assuming that even if someone is still using drugs, that person deserves the investment of the state in order to have a better and longer life. Our country and its principles of combating drug abuse can and should always be aiming to be better." It's time for a different approach. Decriminalization is an argument worth listening to.